He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, let's jump into Obamacare, shall we? It's getting increasingly complicated, isn't it? Are you able to follow all this? I've been working on it a good part of the day. Certain bigwigs on Capitol Hill, one in particular, spoke to me today, trying to convince me of the wisdom of his way and the party's way. I told him politely, and we had a nice discussion, that, sorry, count me out. There are also things going on behind the scenes up there, according to reports. Real, terrible, strong-arm tactics by this guy, Steve Scalise. I've never liked this guy. The number 3 Republican in the House. And now the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is 100% behind this. I wonder if he and his staff even understand what this is. And he's going to go back on the campaign trail to push for it. So we have this very, very interesting combination of the rhino establishment Republicans and Donald Trump pushing for a massive big government health care plan. And this is why I've always told you, don't abandon your conservative principles. Conservatism is based on principles. This other stuff is not. I also said yesterday that it appears to me the Republican Party is no more a party in the sense of agreeing on basic principles than the Democrat Party, in the sense that the Democrat Party is a cobbling together of different constituency groups, but at least they have a relatively ubiquitous left-wing ideology. Republicans have a relatively ubiquitous conservative propaganda, but they don't really mean it. And so they're going to wrap this, as they have, in all kinds of talk about federalism and state authority and choice. And, of course, yesterday, one of the leading advocates of this, I believe the chairman of the House Commerce Committee, he was out there saying, look what we've done. And then he lists 3 or 4 major pillars of Obamacare that they're not going to touch, or they're going to touch in a way that won't harm them, quote unquote. So let's get started here. There's something that is a little complicated, and yet, let me just explain this. There are regulations, massive numbers of regulations that have an enormous economic impact, particularly and including with, particularly and including with insurance companies. Now, the regulations, particularly guaranteed issue and community rating, are almost exclusively responsible for destroying the marketplace. These regulations are almost exclusively responsible for destroying the insurance marketplace. But they would stay in place because they will not run them through the budget reconciliation process, because I was told that the parliamentarian in the Senate will say it's not a budget-related matter. Now, I want you to think about this. These regulations are extremely damaging, and financially so. And yet the parliamentarian of the Senate is going to say that they don't have a budgetary impact? Well, of course they have a budgetary impact. Now, the Congressional Budget Office concluded that it did. If you look at, a recent court case, they said, the court did, obviously, without these regulations, essentially money wouldn't be flowing into the system. So that's number one. Number two, They're leaving these price hiking regulations in place. But then they're getting rid of the individual mandate. And they're putting in place a 30% fine, if you will, penalty. If people are out of health care, that is out of insurance, for 63 days straight in the course of a year, when they come back in, they'll be penalized by 30%. But I can think of an example. I mean, it's not a perfect example, but I can think of an example, at least one, that we talked about yesterday on how this could work if you're a young person. So what if you pay a 30% penalty? For a year, 2, 3, 5 years, you don't have coverage, and then you get ill, and then you get coverage, and you pay the coverage plus 30%. It still, financially, was a benefit not to get it. Then we have this thing called these tax credits, and I had this discussion with the individual. The reason I can't tell you is he called me confidentially, and look, I got to keep my confidences, but I'm revealing to you that the conversation occurred. Big deal. Truth is, I had rejected it how many times, Mr. Producer? Twice? 3 times? But look, he's a very, very nice guy, but so be it. Tax credits. When you hear the phrase tax credits, you think, okay, that's cool. Tax credits. People can deduct the cost from their taxes. You should be able to do that. Well, that's fine. But if you don't earn enough, if you're over the Medicaid level, but you still don't earn enough to pay enough taxes to equalize what your tax credit is, you and I are subsidizing it. And I said that to the gentleman today. I said, well, wait a minute. Am I right that in the aggregate, the federal taxpayer is going to be subsidizing an enormous amount of money? And he said yes. Yes. Massive Medicaid expansion. Medicaid is a disaster right now financially. It takes up 20 to 25% of every dollar that states spend, budget dollar. And it's been expanded under Obamacare. And most of the people who've gotten health care under Obamacare have gotten it under Medicaid. Medicaid, which in many respects is a welfare program. So they say this expansion will continue, the entire Medicaid expansion, until 2020. Now, what do you think is going to happen between now and 2020? What do you think these governors are going to do, Democrat and Republican? And they're throwing $100 billion at the states to deal with high-risk pools and the chronically ill. Now, that won't be enough money, so they're going to be creating another area of spending by the federal government. Now, I want to get back to this issue where they say, well, the parliamentarian will say that, we can't get this stuff passed, some of this through the Senate. You have sites like the conservative nut house. They eat this stuff and they throw it back up as if it's fact. Look, since the Congressional Budget Office and the courts made clear the regulations are the linchpin to raising prices and needing subsidies, how is the repeal of these regulations not a budgetary effect? And if we can't get rid of them, plus do other good things like cross state lines and so forth because of a parliamentarian, how will we ever get this into the second phase? They're talking about phase 2. So they want you to know there's a phase 2 and maybe a phase 3. Let's get this done, right? Let's get this done, and then there'll be a phase 2 and we'll look at the regulations and so forth. Well, if the parliamentarian is the problem, how will phase 2 fix that? Phase 2 won't fix that. Now let's get back to these subsidies, tax credit subsidies. We're going to be giving families who earn $150,000 up to $14,000 in subsidies. And they're not phasing it out completely until $290,000 of income for a family. Now this is on top of the cost of the regulations. How will we ever move towards more of a competitive market system for insurers? To market to the middle and upper middle class, to bring down costs, when we're quote-unquote subsidizing the middle and upper middle class. Well, Mark, what's the problem? They're a tax credit. I told you before. A lot of these tax credits are nothing more than subsidies. We're subsidizing the poor and the elderly with over $1 trillion in spending. Are we prepared to cover the entire middle class with market distortions? These guys are headed into very deep waters, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very deep waters. Now, they're very clever on how I was spun and so forth and so on, but we have a lot of talk show hosts that have jumped into this with both feet because they just like being called by powerful members of Congress. Other people for whom this is just too confounding. It's very complicated. That's another problem. And I'll tell you what I said to the gentleman. It couldn't have been nicer. I said, let's step back. We have Social Security on the ropes, according to the trustees. We have Medicare on the ropes, according to the trustees. Medicaid spending is way out of control. Obamacare is dying. What you guys are proposing are hundreds of billions of dollars new in subsidies. We have Ivanka Trump pushing her family leave subsidy program that you guys are going to have to deal with. They want to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure. $1 trillion. I said, this will be the most profligate, massive, overspending, debt-creating Congress and presidency in American history if we don't draw the line somewhere. And he said, okay, but they're practical things. You know, I got to pull together, we got to govern, I said, but my life shouldn't be tied to you. My life shouldn't be tied to members of Congress. My life shouldn't be tied to Susan Collins and all the rest. The truth is that people who have pre-existing conditions, that people who truly can't afford health care can be covered through various kinds of welfare programs or direct payment programs and so forth. But there are hundreds of millions of people in this country, hundreds of millions of people in this country who are being dragged down or smothered by this process. Why shouldn't I be able to choose whatever I want? Period. Why shouldn't I be able to choose a slimmed-down catastrophic program and only a catastrophic program? What are we doing to future generations, to children and grandchildren and generations yet born, with these massive, overwhelming costs, debt, entitlements? And I ask you the same question. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
By the way, let me tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to stay with Obamacare for a while. There's a lot more information I want to convey to you. And by the way, you can dig into this too. You can go online, look at various sites and so forth, contact your member of Congress. Once there is a House and or Senate report from these intelligence committees or these oversight committees, based on the information that they glean and they can make available, I'm going to do a timeline. I'm going to go back to the various media reports, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, McClatchy, all the rest of them. And I'm going to do this with you. And we're going to go over exactly what they reported or didn't report. The impression they were trying to create, the clouds they were trying to create. And we're going to go through all of that. And we're going to compare it with whatever is publicly available, and hopefully there will be a lot, because that's what we called for last week, these congressional investigations. There's a lot of ass covering, a lot of pivoting going on here. I would argue a lot of shoddy reporting, both in terms of agenda-driven and impression creation. So we're going to go through this. And remember this. The most diabolical part about reporting, as my buddy Chris Plant likes to tell me, is what's left out. And he's an old CNN reporter of 17 years. And others have said it, too. So we're going to take a look at this. I'm going to do a timeline, these various reporting outlets that have tried to take the lead, all these federal investigations and so forth, the FISA courts, and because now these stories are coming out, which are the opposite. No, we were not focused on the Trump campaign. These things just came across as a matter of course when we had intercepts in place and things in place with the Russians. They just kind of happened. And so, and also there are reports, again by the New York Times, that certain intelligence information was shared with the White House and certain staffers. And I would encourage Congress to get to the bottom of that. What was shared? Reports in the New York Times that the NSA rule was changed so that information could be shared with other agencies. On the way out the door. Now, if that was an imperative for investigative and intelligence purposes, why would you do that near the end of an administration? I'm going to pull it all together, and if it's really good, maybe I'll write a book about it. I'm serious about this. I'm finishing up, really, in the next 24 hours, my next book, which has taken me, they wanted it faster, so I did it in a truncated period of time, and I've worked extremely hard on this, and we will have it out on July 4th. And I believe the cover will be out this weekend on Amazon. I'm not sure, even though July 4th is a ways away. So I think the media have done us a great disservice, but me a great service, because now, I've never really focused on putting things together with them. We're going to do that. I'm going to do that. We'll just put it together. Because they seem to be very angry with me. Well, you should be disgusted with them. And we'll piece it together. We'll see what they got wrong, what they got right, which reporter did it, which news outlet did it. And then maybe I'll invite them on the program. I'll invite them on the program. All right, when we come back, I want to do more Obamacare because there's a lot of information here that's very compelling, and I think you're going to want to know about it. I'll be right back.
$3811.
All right, you ready? Conservative Review has done such outstanding work, and I'm proud to be the editor-in-chief. Our whole team there, led by Gaston Mooney and Daniel Horowitz, just have done outstanding work. Daniel really is into this. Nate Madden, excellent man, writing over there, 6 moronic arguments for RhinoCare refuted. And that's what we call it, RhinoCare. Would you join us? Would you join us in calling it RhinoCare? Number 1, it repeals Obamacare. Well, it really doesn't. Ask yourself, what is Obamacare? What parts of the law are creating the worst problems in health insurance markets? Obamacare is a regulatory structure of mandated insurance benefits, artificial marketplaces known as exchanges, and subsidies. The Republican plan gets rid of some taxes, but as Daniel Horowitz explained, it retains the worst parts of Obamacare while only removing the less egregious portions piecemeal. The mandated essential benefits were not repealed. The exchanges, these fake marketplaces, remain in place. And while some subsidies are cut, most are not repealed until 2020 when they are replaced with a new entitlement program. This is repeal in name only. That is RINO, RhinoCare. Number 2, it will lower costs, they say. The chief factor driving up costs under Obamacare are the insurance regulations, the worst of which are retained in this bill. Among the chief complaints against Obamacare for years now has been the rising health insurance premiums that millions of Americans cannot afford. The American Health Insurance Act cuts subsidies and taxes. But the things that make it more expensive for insurers to operate and difficult for market distributors to compete are the thou shalt insurance mandates. These rules, which compel insurers to cover certain medical procedures, like pap smears for men, keep the market cost of insurance artificially inflated and limit the consumer's choice. Because the Republican plan does not address these cost-increasing mandates, insurance premiums will continue to rise, and the Republican Party will get stuck with the blame at the ballot box. Remember, this has been heartily endorsed by President Trump. Number 3, they call it entitlement reform. House Speaker Paul Ryan has touted his plan as the most significant entitled reform in more than half a century. Well, if by entitlement reform he means creating a different new entitlement, then sure. But that's not what limited government conservatives were hoping for and promised countless times from a unified Republican government. House leadership's plan creates a new entitlement program through the bill's tax credits, one which flows primarily to the wealthy and upper middle class. Moreover, most of the ameliorating provisions of this proposed reform are slated to happen by 2020, long after the 2018 election, which won't bode well for the rest of those proposed replacement phases. The point there being, they're not going to do them. They're putting them off for a reason. Finally, the American Health Care Act, this is what the Republican proposal is called, let's say grandfathers Obama's Medicaid expansion in. It leaves enrollment open for 2 more years, perversely incentivizing states to further expand it, and fast. And it throws $10 billion, actually $100 billion, to the states that never expanded Medicaid, which in itself means more entitlements and greater insolvency over the big, fat elephant sticker on them. Number 4 claim, this is just the first act. Let it play out. You've been hearing that all day. Got phase 2 and phase 3. Settle down. This is a popular one. Let's see. On his Wednesday morning radio show, my man Hugh Hewitt chided die-hard conservatives opposed to the bill's provisions. This is what's in the article. Arguing that leadership's process is akin to a 5-act play that is still developing and must be viewed in full to properly appreciate. Keep in mind, leadership has spanned out and called talk show hosts and so forth. Now, there's some truth to that claim and analogy, even if current requests for blind trusts sound an awful lot like having to pass RhinoCare to find out what's in it. Even the conservative rebuild plan requires that any health insurance reform needs to happen in phases, thanks to budget reconciliation, the imposing regulatory regime, and the obstructionist Senate Democrats who will filibuster any changes to their failed laws simply out of spite. But the problem isn't the number of acts or length of play. The problem is what kind of stage is being set. Whether on stage or screen, you can usually get a sense of what you're watching by the first act. If you're watching a classic, as all conservatives ought, at least from time to time, then you should show and know what's going on by the time the chorus is over. It matters very little what kinds of tweaks can be made to a legislative vehicle if that vehicle retains the most problematic aspects of Obamacare in the first instance, the regulations and the entitlements. Put simply, this isn't the show that the American people opted for in November. They bought tickets for the good, the bad, and the ugly, and instead they're watching the opening scene in Hairspray. Sure, they're both movies, but the latter wasn't listed on the theater marquee. Likewise, Paul Ryan's is a health care plan, but not the kind he and his party promised. Number 5, they're saying, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. They always say this when they're pushing a liberal agenda and trashing conservatives. Ah, yes, we must compromise, you see, in order to get anything across the finish line. The Wall Street Journal's editorial board. The Wall Street Journal has become a big government mouthpiece for the rhinos. Almost in every instance. Almost in every instance. You got fools like Brett Stevens over there. Can't find his way out of a bathroom. Yes, the Wall Street Journal correctly asserts that the GOP did promise a replacement package. But why are mere tweaks to the original system the only game in town? It's not as if Republicans have majorities in both houses and were already planning an arm-breaking whip operation in the Senate if they're willing to go that hard on Obamacare light. What in the world is wrong with going through with the full repeal they ran and won on? And further, opposition to the Republican bill as written is not making the perfect, a true free market health care plan, the enemy of the good, sensible reforms that move in that direction. The Republican plan is bad because it keeps the core of Obamacare in place. And Obamacare is bad. And I would add, why are the Republicans and their media surrogates and outlets talking like liberals? Sixth and finally in this respect, excellent piece over at Conservative Review. They're saying, you know it's a good bill because the Democrats hate it. Is Democratic posturing now the rule by which we measure good policy and principle? Of course the Democrats hate it. Even if it were closer to Obamacare than it actually already is, they would hate it. Even if Ryan and President Trump proposed single-payer Medicare for all, they would fight it because Trump and the GOP's name is on it. This is what happens when you treat every policy debate as the Manchian political life or death struggle, as the progressive movement has done for over a century. Further, it's personal for Democrat leader Nancy Pelosi, who's desperately trying to preserve the legacy, quote-unquote, of the law she and others foisted on the American people 8 years ago, as Politico pointed out this morning. If anything, the Democrats are overreaching in their opposition. Were they to do everything they can to make sure the bill passes, it would make it easier for them to pull the system even further to the left once the GOP's own death spiral reaches its natural conclusion, that is, a collapse of the health insurance markets. The chief conservative complaint against the American Health Care Act is that the Republican Party didn't keep its promise to fully repeal Obamacare. It's not the Republicans didn't put everything conservatives wanted into this bill. It's that it leaves enough of the current system, the current Obamacare system in place to continue and exasperate its problems. Again, a far cry from what the GOP ran on the past 4 election cycles. It's not about purism and perfectionism. If this bill is truly open for debate, deliberation, and negotiation, as Tom Price said, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Health and Human Services, it should be negotiated toward the kinds of market principles that will actually lower costs, improve coverage, and expand availability. Now, well, what do you guys propose, right? What do we propose? Well, we have 20 ideas. 20 ideas, David Horowitz writes in Conservative Review, to crush Obamacare and cure America's health care crisis. Now, it's time to bust apart the regulatory state, he writes, that enriches the big government, big business cartel. And we can start with 20 ideas on a state and federal level that kick government to the curb and return the power to consumers, entrepreneurs, and health care providers. Now, I'm going to get to this after the break, but it should trouble you immensely that you have a combination of forces here. The President of the United States, who is said to be an outsider and a businessman, and the usual dug-in K Street Republican establishment. And they have joined forces to push what will become the most massive entitlement program America has ever known, despite what the Republicans say. Despite what the Wall Street Journal editorial page says, which supports virtually every Republican budget with Obama, every debt ceiling increase with Obama, and so forth and so on. They're to be disregarded. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Things affect your life. They affect your health and well-being and that of your family. So, in my view, it's not to be ignored. You need to get engaged. You're being spun right now. And we'll have Jim Jordan, great congressman from Ohio, on in the third hour, among other issues that we'll be getting into. You know, folks, by now you know I'm a proud member of the United States Concealed Carry Association, who provide industry-leading education, training, self-defense insurance for responsible gun owners. And while they want to make sure you're protected legally and financially, should you ever have to pull the trigger and defend yourself, they also want to arm you with the most effective tool they know for self-defense. So last month, the USCCA bought 10 of my listeners a brand new Kimber. Now this month, they want you to pick out any gun that you want. So they're giving you 10 chances to win $1,500 to buy the gun of your dreams. Which gun will it be? A brand new AR-15, a custom 1911? Think hard, because any gun you've been dreaming about could be yours thanks to my buddies over at the USCCA. Just visit defendthem.com, and then you can enter for free today. It's that simple. And there's absolutely no restrictions. You can pick any gun, any brand, and any caliber you want. But it's even more than that. This is a wonderful organization. You really need to check it out if, in fact, you're a concealed carry owner. Don't miss out on your best chance to take home the gun of your dreams. Just go to defendthem.com right now and get your name on the entry list. That's defendthem.com. It's a great group. Great group, great group. I spoke to them when they joined us as a sponsor. All right, let's go. 20 ideas to crush Obamacare, writes Horowitz at the Conservative Review. Number 1, end the medical malpractice boondoggle. Number 2, allow hospitals to turn away non-urgent illegal aliens. Number 3, offer a tax deduction for those providing health care to indigents. I'm going to do this quickly, but you can go find it at Conservative Review. Number 4, reform the Food and Drug Administration approval process. Big time. Number 5, make more drugs available over the counter. Number 6, stop boxing out specialty hospitals with burdensome certifications. Number 7, expand who can deliver care so health providers have to compete for the consumer. Let's see where I'm at. Number 8, promote telemedicine and other modern delivery systems. Number 9, break up the AMA monopoly on medicine and prevention of for-profit health care. Number 10, repeal the HIPAA regulatory leviathan. Number 11, encourage health care providers to post prices online. Now, health insurance reforms. Number 12, tear down regulations. Number 13, promote health status insurance to deal with pre-existing conditions. Number 14, stop socially engineering employer-based insurance through the tax code and treat it the same as individual plans. Number 15, allow unlimited health savings account spending. Number 16, let consumers and employers purchase health insurance plans across state lines. That's not even in this bill, by the way. Number 17, permit individuals to pool together for group insurance. Number 18, change antitrust laws so Big Pharma's stranglehold on competition is destroyed. Number 19, make Medicaid work with the market, not destroy the market. Number 20, allow affluent seniors to opt out of Medicare. And each one of these items, you say, well, what does that mean? What's number 7 mean? Each one is explained in some detail. Did I post this, Mr. Producer? I think I did, right, on Mark Levin's Show Facebook? Yeah. Check it out on Mark Levin's Show Facebook and Mark Levin's Show Twitter. It's too lengthy, at least right now during this program, to read them. But these are brilliant suggestions, brilliant proposals, none of which are contained in the Rhino Plan. That is, repeal in name only. Let's do this together. Rhino Plan, repeal in name only. Now, folks, these are common sense, market-oriented proposals. And to move things faster, to allow more competition, to bring more people and resources into the healthcare system, to get drugs to people faster, meaning at a lower price ultimately, and to use existing technologies, such as telemedicine and so forth. And some of these other things are outdated. The HIPAA regulatory leviathan. I understand privacy. Fine, we can have privacy, but we don't need HIPAA. We don't need the way that works. And why are we paying for non-urgent illegal aliens if they just walk in and they have a cold or something like that? You should be able to know who they are and say no, turn around and leave. There's no reason for that. And why shouldn't we have specialty hospitals? Why do they have to go through ridiculous permitting systems and processes that make it basically unaffordable and impossible? We shouldn't. And why shouldn't people be able to put aside, through a tax deduction, if you will, as much money as they want for health care? Why aren't we encouraging that sort of thing? That's not a subsidy the way that the tax credits they're talking about in RhinoCare is a subsidy, where people get tax credits for money they don't even have, or taxes they never paid. That's an entitlement. That's welfare. That's what that is. And it's been a long time since we've needed malpractice reform. I understand the slip and fall trial lawyers are money pit. That is a source of enormous campaign funds for the Democrat Party. But so what? That's their problem. And even this buying insurance across state lines so there's more competition and so forth. Well, that's only big insurance companies. Well, that's how it starts. But it's amazing, the inventiveness of the American people. So why not do it? So there are some ideas, and they're elaborated upon if you check it out. The article is 20 Ideas to Crush Obamacare and Cure America's Health Care Crisis. Check it out, Mark Levin Show, Facebook and Twitter.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 887. What the hell is the number? I can't remember. 381-3811. 877-381-3811. Hey, it happened. 877-381-3811. Now, we're going to take some calls. Our boards are we full? People are really angry. Can't say I blame you. But let me show you what's going on behind the scenes. Not only is President Trump now going all over the country or planning to promote this disaster, Mike Pence is up on Capitol Hill threatening people that basically if you don't support this, you support Obamacare. Oh, really? Then the number third of the three stooges up there, that would be Steve Scalise. Behind the scenes, he does his wicked work. Can you see if you can get Steve Scalise on this program, Mr. Producer? This is from Politistick, but it's been independently confirmed. Matthew Burke. He writes, one of the sleaziest tactics used by slimeball politicians is to dupe their largely uninformed and uncaring followers is the false choice fallacy. It's normally used by progressive leftist Democrats when the facts aren't on their side, and therefore must create a false dilemma in order to achieve the desired outcome that moves America further left. Now, I have to admit, I've never seen this site before. It doesn't mean it's not all great. I don't know what it is, but I'm just pointing out because I confirmed something in here myself. So, leftists use the con man, two false choices tactic often as a ploy. Congressman Steve Scalise, the House Majority Whip, who was formerly one of John Boehner's henchmen, is trying to ram House GOP leadership's Obamacare replacement scheme down our throats. He's tried the same ploy today, telling principled constitutional conservatives who oppose the bill, they call it the American Health Care Act, but has roundly been dubbed Obama 2.0, RhinoCare, and Obamacare Light by conservatives, that you have two false choices. Either you support Donald Trump, who's proudly endorsed the bill, by the way, that doesn't obviously really repeal Obamacare, and it's filled with all the rest that we've talked about. So Scalise tells him, you either support Donald Trump, who supports our bill, and honestly, I suspect Donald Trump knows very little about this bill, or Nancy Pelosi, he said. who Scalise knows is despised by conservatives and someone who, of course, wants to keep the dreaded Obamacare. So House GOP leaders trying to shore up support for their health care bill are giving conservatives a stark message. Are you with Nancy Pelosi or are you with Donald Trump? Steve Scalise put up a slide at Wednesday morning's closed-door Republican conference meeting that had a split screen, according to sources who attended the session. One slide had a picture of Pelosi, the House Democrat leader and former Speaker, with a quote saying, "The Republican health care bill couldn't be any worse." On the other side was a picture of Trump, with a quote saying he was proud to back the leadership's legislation. Scalise referenced the picture, and according to those sources in the room, posed the question to members, unhappy the bill doesn't go far enough to reverse Obamacare. Now, whose side are you on? Now, just so you know, Scalise has a conservative review Liberty score rating of 62% out of 100%. He is a D. And now he's trying to jam the conservatives. That's what they're trying to do. To jam the conservatives, threaten the conservatives. I'm also told independently, a friend of mine who spoke to them, the Freedom Caucus, and said they are really taking heat. They are really, really under the gun now. You've got Trump, you've got Pence, Ryan, McCarthy, Scalise. You have K Street. You have the committee chairman. You have outlets like the Wall Street Journal editorial page, a mouthpiece for the Republican leadership, and others. You have some radio hosts who have been gotten to by the leadership and so forth. It's ugly. And it's hard, ladies and gentlemen, to stand up as a relative few against what's going on in this country. Same with this bill. It's tough to stand up against it. Because you're swimming into you're swimming into the tide. You're swimming against the tide. Even when you're doing what you said you would do, you're up against the forces. And it's not very pleasant. So if you want to let these men and women know that you back them, you better let them know now. You better let them know now. Let's go to George, Orlando, Florida, Sirius Satellite. How are you, sir?
Yes, it's an honor and privilege to speak with you, Mark, the great one. I practiced medicine in Canada for 10 years, and I understand socialized medicine. And we fought this Obama tax bill for the last 8 years, and this is the best that America can hope for. I mean, clearly the 20 proposals, including buying across state lines, significant tort reform to reduce defensive medicine, the cost drivers are not being addressed in this 123-page bill. And I actually read the bill, and they're asking us to do the same thing that Nancy Pelosi asked, just trust that this is going to be better than Obama tax. Well, they didn't open the bill to be read by other legislators like Mike Lee and
Rand Paul.
And Paul and Dr. Rand Paul.
Let me tell you part of what's going on Capitol Hill. I addressed this yesterday, but I want to address it again. The Republican Party is not a conservative party. It is a conservative wing. That's what we've learned. Then there's another wing, which is more of a progressive wing, and the party has become increasingly progressive over time. And so the political spectrum has moved left. And so if you believe in more market-oriented sorts of things, more capitalism, more family, individual-oriented care, care that is determined by the individual. I'll give you an example. I've heard people say today that everybody should, in fact, be forced to make a payment into this healthcare system. Because if they get sick, then you and I have to pay for it. Right, doctor? That's what they say. And I thought to myself, that really is the tail wagging the dog. So now we all have to pay into a system that we know will fail. I have a better idea. Most of the young people, they used to be able to get a catastrophic plan or a limited plan through their colleges. It might cost them $200, $300, $400 for the entire year. You remember that, doctor?
Yes.
They can't buy a system anymore for $200 or $300 or $400 for minimal care or catastrophic care. They would buy that. Most of them did because it was cost effective, because it addressed their needs in case they did get sick. But now they're being told, and this is by conservatives and pseudo-conservatives, no, you pay that 30%. You can't be, I'm tired of subsidizing it. In other words, they've been sucked into the whole mindset. This doesn't fix anything. It doesn't fix anything. Thank you for your call, sir. Howard, Washington, D.C., the great WMAL, another doctor. How are you?
Hi, Mark. I'm a doctor. I'm Jewish, and I'm a former Democrat, but you have educated me through your shows and writings to now become a passionate constitutional conservative.
Thank you.
I also think you're a very brave man. Lots of people are good, but you don't see a lot of mixture of good and brave very much. It doesn't take me bravery to call your show, but it takes bravery, tremendous bravery, to do what you do, and I thank God that you're in America doing what you're doing.
Well, you're very, very kind. By the way, what kind of doctor are you, man? Can you tell me?
Yeah, well, I'm a radiologist.
Okay, very good.
Anyway, I've been in private practice for about 30 years, and this new health care plan of the Republicans to me is awful. It's just a variation on leftism and socialism that runs most of medicine today. And I feel if you continue down this road, any chance of American medicine returning to its real greatness will be gone pretty much forever. Mm-hmm. To me, Mark, it's really not rocket science as to why people are attracted to this leftism. It's because basically it's hard for a lot of us to grow up. That's what the utopian kind of child world of leftism is all about. The view is basically mommy and daddy, politician in Washington, you just figure it out and get us the stuff we want, hopefully for free, just like in England, and I'll vote for you. And we have a right to be taken care of when we're sick, and don't talk to us about adult things like obligations. Don't talk to us about things like Mark Levin talks about, liberty, protection of private property, competition, capitalism, profit, and what is true insurance. We don't want to hear who pays for the doctor and the nurse and the engineer who makes our MRI machines, and we don't want to hear about who pays for the construction worker that builds our hospital. We just have rights. Give us stuff from Washington. And Mark, to me, that basically sums up what we're dealing with. It's basically kind of the world of the child, the world of leftism, and anything it touches, it wrecks. Just look at Venezuela, look at Cuba, look at our universities. Anything this leftism touches, it wrecks. And you preach the adult world, and the adult world is conservatism. And that's what capitalism is about, and that's how you get lots of good stuff at low cost, whether it's MRI scans or food or iPads or clothing or shelter. There's no mommy or daddy in Washington, D.C. to sprinkle this stuff down to you. You got to pay for it, and you've got to meet your obligations. And sort of that's basically how I sort of analyze this. I may be wrong, but I don't think I am because...
Oh, no. You're not only right, you're compelling as hell. And that is an outstanding job. Tell me, when did you go from being a liberal to a conservative? What was it that caused that?
People like you. My sister called me in Florida and said, you got to listen to this guy on talk radio. And Mark, you know that our educational system is generally very poor. I mean, we go through 12 years of primary school and 4 years of college. Whoever reads the Constitution, it's an outrage that nobody, after 16 years of American schooling, doesn't know the Constitution and doesn't know the Federalist Papers and never heard of Locke and never heard of Montesquieu. It's an outrage because doesn't read the Bible, because that's where all of our values come from. 93% of the doctors in this world and most Harvard graduates don't know Milton Friedman from a hole in the wall. They don't know anything about economics or how wealth is created.
Let me ask you something, Doctor. For the last week or so, and I've actually enjoyed it, and there's going to be more coming, and I'm going to make sure of it, I've been painted as a rabid right-wing conspiracy theorist.
I know. I hear that.
No. I've been painted. by people who've never read a single book of mine, by people who actually haven't taken the time to listen to this program, because they want to create an image. They want to create a myth, and I refuse to go along, and I will not go along, because I called them out, and I've exposed them, and I'm going to continue to do it. That's why people who don't have a microphone like I do, or don't have digital TV like I do, and don't have access to other media like I do, that's why they are quiet. Because if you don't have the ability to defend yourself and articulate yourself to a wide number of people, the media will destroy you. They absolutely will. Anyway, Howard, I want to thank you. Excellent call. Really enjoyed it. Wasn't that great, Rich? I mean, Doctor, call again. Call again. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let us go to Greg, Naples, Florida, the great WFSX. Go.
Hey, Mark. How are you, sir?
All right, sir. Thank you.
Listen, I'm a 48-year-old guy. I've got 2 kids, a wife that's a nurse, and I've seen the healthcare system just go completely out of control. I can't go to a doctor because I'm afraid of the bill. I work overtime, and you know what? I don't care. I don't get paid for it. Don't care. These people, this Ryan is trying to push all this off right now.
Why are we only focused on Ryan, which we should be? But what about Trump?
Well, Trump should. You know what? I'm a Trump supporter, but I wanted Cruz.
By the way, let me tell the American people something. You want to know why the Republicans won the House, the Senate, and the presidency? It had nothing to do with nationalism, populism, protectionism. The Supreme Court and this, Obamacare. These were really the 2 reasons, and I'd say immigration as a number 2, but these 2 were the top. People felt Obamacare, and they wanted to get rid of it. So this is, in fact, one of the primary reasons why the Republicans control Washington, including Trump.
And I'm blue collar, and I worked my butt off, and you know what? I wanted to repeal it, and I don't understand why they just don't do what they said they were going to do. And it's people like me with families and everything else that are just tired of the Washington BS that, you know what, do what you were elected to do, repeal it, and then start over and do something right.
Why do they campaign as conservatives, and then they go out of their way to protect the house that Obama built?
Well, they're not. They're rhinos. And that's what's killing.
Well, but you say rhinos. Look, is Trump a rhino?
Who knows what Trump is? Seriously.
Well, he's pressuring everybody. He sent Pence up on Capitol Hill. Pence actually sounded more animated than I've ever heard him before. Now Trump's traveling the countryside. He's going to Kentucky to put pressure on Rand Paul and so forth. They're pressing the hell out of the conservatives within the Republican Party. They're going to come under attack. You watch by the Wall Street Journal and the usual surrogates and pretenders.
Because the problem is that these progressives, they're killing us. They're killing the working man. And I'm a working man. And there's a lot of people that I know, they're all in industry. We work all day long. And we're waiting for these Republicans to do what they were supposed to do, what they were elected to do. I mean, seriously, repeal Obamacare, start over, fine. You know what they did effectively? They screwed 360 or 340 million for 20 million people that were probably on welfare in the first place. Okay, I mean, why would
they're not all on welfare now? But let's do make the point, and I've made this point, which is it's almost inverted. We have a healthcare system that's really built for 20 or 30 or 40 million people. It is not built in Washington, because it ought to be more market oriented, but it's not built for the vast majority of the American people. Greg, I'm sorry you're having to go through this, and you're not alone. Thank you for your call. You know what we're going to try and do during the break? I'm going to put you on the spot, Rich. If you can't, you can't. Remember the audio we had from that guy who was in Britain telling everybody what Obamacare was really about? Redistribution of wealth. You want to see if you can dig that up? Oh, okay, Rich, during the break's going to have to hustle, folks. Let's see if he can do it. I'll be right back. CT shirts, I'll tell you why I wear CT shirts and why you should too. If you're a professional looking to move up, people judge you by the clothes that you wear. I see it constantly. Guys wearing wrinkled, out-of-style shirts that don't fit right. That's not the impression you want to make on people who matter. This is why I wear Charles Tyrwhitt shirts. CT shirts are British-styled, using the softest, most exquisite fabrics I've ever worn. In fact, I got you a special deal that I want to tell you about in a second. Work or casual, tie or no tie, tucked or untucked, when you're wearing a CT shirt, you look great and you know it. Now, here's the deal. One CT shirt normally costs $100, but right now you'll get three CT shirts for just $99. That's 60% off. And CT shirts come with free delivery, a 6-month quality guarantee, and free returns. So let me repeat. 3 shirts, $99 rather than 1 shirt for $100, and free delivery, a 6-month quality guarantee, and free returns. $99 gets you 3 amazing CT beautiful, comfortable shirts. But you need to hurry. Go to ctshirts.com/Levin. That's ctshirts.com, ctshirts.com/Levin. That's ctshirts.com/Levin. I love my shirts. You really ought to check them out, and that is a great deal. And look at the guarantee. It's unbelievable. You don't get that in any other shirts. All right. I want you to hear this, ladies and gentlemen. This guy was an advisor to Obama and an advisor to his team that was developing this health care, both on the Hill and in the White House. He became, at least temporarily, I believe it was a recess appointment, within the Obama administration. My recollection, and it is my recollection, is that he was running the Medicare and Medicaid operations there for a while. Could be wrong, but he was in the Obama administration. I want you to listen carefully. This is about 10 years ago. First of all, his approach to American health care, and then what he believes health care should be. Cut 14, go.
You could have had a simpler, less ambitious, less troubled plan than the NHS. You could have had the American plan. You could have been spending 17% of your GDP to make health care unaffordable as a human right, instead of spending 9% and guaranteeing it as a human right. You could have kept your system in fragments and encouraged supply-driven demand, instead of making tough choices and planning supply. You could have made hospitals and specialists, not general practice, your mainstay. You could have obscured, you could have obliterated accountability, or left it to the invisible hand of the market, instead of holding your politicians ultimately accountable for getting the NHS sorted. You could have let an unaccountable system play out in the darkness of private enterprise, instead of accepting that a politically accountable system must act in the harsh and admittedly sometimes very unfair daylight of the press, public debate, and political campaigning.
Listen to how cold and sterile these progressives are. Just listen to them. How they mock, and then how they proclaim. How they mock and then proclaim. The harsh and admittedly sometimes unfair daylight of the press, public debate, and political campaigning. Some people will suffer, but in the end, more people won't. So much for the egalitarian wonderland. So much for utopian statism. But here's the kicker. He wasn't done. Now remember, this was an advisor to Obama and an employee, a senior employee of Obama's, a man involved in the Obamacare development. Cut 15, go.
You could have had a monstrous insurance industry of claims and rules and paper pushing instead of using your tax base to provide a single route of finance. You could have protected the wealthy and the well instead of recognizing that sick people tend to be poorer and that poor people tend to be sicker, and that any health care funding plan that is just, equitable, civilized, and humane must redistribute wealth.
Stop. Must redistribute wealth. From whom, Mr. Producer? Go ahead.
Richer among us to the poorer and the less fortunate.
From the richer among us, not the rich, from the richer among us, in other words, you, to the poor and the less fortunate. This is what I've always tried to explain. But anyway, let's let him finish. Go ahead.
Excellent health care is by definition redistributional. Britain, you chose well.
Yes, and those yellow teeth, they're really in. Oh, yeah. They really are a statement. Anyway, you see, this is why we have a problem. For the hardcore leftists, the progressives, for 100 years, it's all about radical egalitarianism. It's all about wringing individuality out of the individual. It's all about trashing private property rights. It's about redistributing wealth, redistributing rights, centralized, iron-fisted government decision-making, a ubiquitous army of bureaucrats in a massive administrative state ruled over, to some extent, by a president, often bypassing the other branches of government and certainly bypassing the states, families, and individuals. And they finally succeeded under Obamacare. And you know it. And you're suffering the consequences of it. And you've had enough of it. And you've done the only thing you can do in a republic. Time and again and again and again. You have voted. This is supposed to be about the consent of the governed. You have voted. You voted the Republicans into the House, the Republicans into the Senate. An outsider, a man who said he's going to repeal Obamacare. Now, are they going to repeal it? No, they're going to leave huge chunks of it behind, and then they're going to pretend that they've repealed it. That's what's going on tonight as I speak. At Washington, D.C., a combination of the Republican establishment and the President Trump and his administration, as well as their surrogates in the media, are putting enormous pressure on the few conservative holdouts in the House and the Senate to buckle. To buckle. Always telling us the same thing. You'll get a little today, we'll get more tomorrow. Don't seek perfection. It's not that we seek perfection, ladies and gentlemen. We try to avoid disaster. We're not moving in the right direction. They always quote Reagan, if I can get 80% of it, that'll be good. Okay, fine. I have no problem with that. I have a problem with if we get no percent of it. Because in the end, that's where we are. So, let us go to Lynn, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Our great affiliate there is WISN. Go right ahead.
Hi, Mark. It's such a privilege to talk to you. You know, I was in college during the Carter administration, and I was going to major in journalism, and they told me that we have to interpret the news. So then I'm like, okay, well, I kind of want to know what's going on with our country. So I went into finance, which, by the way, Trump majored in. And I'm like, I don't think these finance guys are, they're good at financing, but what about the economy? So I took an economics class, and I was fortunate enough to be taught by a professor named Dills, who was taught by Milton Friedman, and it just opened my eyes. Let's do the numbers. Let's crunch them. Let's figure out what's going on. And I just want to thank you for all you do, because your books, Men in Black and the Liberty Amendments, those are two bookends to what's going on in this country, and all your books in between. And I just want to say what a big fan I am of yours. But to make a long story shorter, just bear with me for 30 seconds. There's 320 million people in this country. The best number I can come up with is that there's 57 million people uninsured. 2.5.
Let's stop right there. They have always inflated that number. And I wrote about this in Liberty and Tyranny. When they used to say 41 and 42 million, and I really dug down in it, there were not 41 or 42 million. You know what? They were including people who during the course of a year may lose their job and therefore lose their insurance for a limited period of time. And they were including them in the numbers. And that's just an effort to inflate those numbers, because those people, on the whole, I forget the number I used in the book and so forth, but my recollection is that it was a short period of time during the course of the year. So it wasn't 40-some-odd million several years ago, and I can assure you it's not 57 million.
Well, if there's 2.58 people per family on average, using that 57 number, their number, right, you need to buy 22 million policies. Just buy them the policies. because it's only.
This is what I don't understand. I'm with you. Whatever the number is, okay. Rather than destroy the whole of society, rather than destroy health care for people who had good plans. Okay, it's this percentage over here. Well, we'll do whatever we can do for that percentage over there. That doesn't mean you have to destroy the whole system.
If you did that, it would save 82% of what the Congressional Budget Office says Obamacare costs. 82%. We're done here. And then open up the free markets, the cost will come down more. Is the end game, well, see, the end game is not to make sure people have insurance. The end game is to redistribute wealth. And the problem with the Republicans, and very few people writing these laws are economists. Very few, these are lawyers, and they're taking something very simple and making it very complicated. Just give these. You want United Healthcare? You got it. You want Aetna? You got it. And when you get insurance from your employer, you're off. We're done. Mm-hmm. It's the healthiest thing you could possibly do. I do understand the problem. The problem is people aren't.
The problem is they are not going to give up power. Is that not the problem?
Power. They're a bunch of drug addicts drunk on power.
They are not going to give up power. If you can tell me any time the progressives ever have given back power, if there is a time, or there are times, they're very, very rare. Excellent call, my friend. I appreciate it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, folks, precarious times, they definitely are. The Congress, and I'm afraid the White House, they're on a spending spree. Do you see any self-restraint whatsoever? Let's be honest. Be intellectually honest. This Rhino Care is another massive budget buster. We have Ivanka Family Care. That's going to be a new entitlement. We have $1 trillion infrastructure program. That's going to be another $1 trillion. I don't care how they justify it or dress it up. We know Social Security and Medicare are going broke. I didn't make that up. That's what the trustees say. Student loans have been essentially nationalized in some respects, and that burden's out there. Where's this going to go? The lib media don't care. They never report on this stuff. Well, you need to protect yourself. And the way you protect yourself, because you work hard and you earn some money, is to diversify. That's what the financial advisors tell you to do. Diversify. Maybe have some stocks and bonds through your mutual funds, that is, through your pensions or what have you. Maybe you own a home, maybe have another piece of real estate somewhere, that sort of stuff. But you might want to consider buying gold, too. Yes, I do. I like gold. I actually like holding it. I get gold coins. And it's something you might want to consider. Now, here's what you do. Consider contacting our longtime sponsor, Goldline. That's who I get my gold from. And you can start for as little as $100 a month. $100 a month. Call them at 877-365-COIN. They're there right now. Don't wait. Don't wait. You'll get free information. And by the way, if you call right now, listen to this. Goldline will also give you a free Thomas Jefferson presidential coin. Now, they don't have an endless supply, so you need to call right away. So get ready, get set, call. Get your free Thomas Jefferson presidential coin, and make sure you ask them about their various products and, the possibility of starting for as little as $100 a month. Be sure to read Goldline's important risk disclosures. I always tell you that, too. Call right now, 1-877-365-COIN, 1-877-365-COIN. And Goldline will also give you a free Thomas Jefferson presidential coin just for calling while supplies last. 1-877-365-COIN. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody sent to me a very long dossier that was produced on me by Media Matters, which has been funded in the past by George Soros and other leftist kooks. And as I went through this, I said to myself, Wow, have they done a smear job on you? Now, keep something in mind. This is sent out to all the media, and I'm reading stuff in here that has appeared in the media the last 5 days. So we have this circle jerk that takes place between official leftist activism and unofficial leftist activism. Here's the headline, A Short Guide to Mark Levin, Trump's likely source for his wiretapping lie. Trump's claim that Obama ordered a wiretap of Trump Tower came from radio talk show host Mark Levin. I have never said in any definitive way that Obama ordered a wiretap of Trump Tower. Have I ever said that, Mr. Producer? It's so ridiculous, and yet they keep repeating it because they can't help it. The big lie is the big lie. Trump repeated rumor from right-wing radio host Mark Levin to accuse Obama administration of spying on him during election, offering no evidence. All I did is pull together the public record. Levin is one of the most popular talk radio hosts in the country. That's a fact. Trump endorsed, listen to this, Trump endorsed Levin's 2013 book. I didn't remember that. I didn't even know the guy. Where are we? And gave Levin one of his first interviews after he announced his presidential bid. I don't know if it was one of his first interviews or not. So what? What did we do? A total of 3 of them, Mr. Producer? I don't know. Who did I wind up endorsing? How come it doesn't say that? Who did I endorse in the Republican primary? Cruz. Now, of course, in September, I backed Trump. None of us wanted Hillary Clinton. We're not insane. And, of course, Media Matters is, in my view, a criminal front organization, given its tax status, because it is all left all the time. Levin's record includes attacking President Obama, Latinos, LGBT Americans, and climate science. Now, it would take me hours to unpack all this. But this is the nature of the Saul Alinsky smear job. And then you should look at these headlines. Levin, Obama is a lowlife and a racist for using the N-word after the Charleston shooting. Levin, part of Obama's agenda was to change the racial makeup of America with the importation of millions and millions from the third world. I remember what I said about that. It wasn't put that way, I can guarantee you. Levin warned that Obama would go full Mussolini after the 2014 midterms. Levin diagnosed Obama with narcissistic personality disorder. Levin, there's been more genocide, more rape, more enslavement under this president than any other president in modern history. Well, that's true. I lost my place. Levin, Obamacare supporters are brown shirts. Levin, Obama is the greatest threat the Jews face since the 1930s. ... Since the 1930s. Levin demanded a national discussion about the anti-Semitism of the Obama administration. Levin, I'm not going to give this man what he wants, a captive audience for his Castro-like speeches. And it goes on. Wow, gee whiz. Gee willikers. I don't know, that guy sounds a little scary to me. Does he need you, Mr. Producer? Although there's some real pearls in there, I must say. All right, I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We are scheduled to have Jim Jordan, Congressman, in about 10 or 15 minutes. Before we do that, you know, we're very flexible. Robbie Mook was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, and she was on Fox and Friends this morning. Or he, I should say. And I want you to hear what he said. Hat tip, weasel zippers, cut 5, go.
Facts are that Trump aides were caught talking to Russian agents, and those conversations were captured because the intelligence community regularly taps.
All right, let's stop there. So this is interesting. Trump aides were talking to Russian agents? What kind of Russian agents? KGB type agents? Trump aides were talking to Russian agents. I don't even know. What does that mean? Remember, this is the campaign manager, Robbie Mook, to Hillary Clinton. Go ahead.
Of those Russian agents. So I think it's important to start there.
You're saying there was a wiretap? You say there was a wiretap.
That there was a wiretap of Russian agents, and that those Russian agents were communicating with Trump staff. That's why they were picked up. That's
How do you know
the
that?
Intelligence community. That's what the intelligence community has told us.
Whoa. That's what the intelligence community told whom? See, this is why it's important to get to the bottom of this. You know, even if there's no surveillance put in place as a result of a FISA court of individuals who are surrogates to the campaign or of a server or what have you, it is a big deal still when they're intercepting. Let's say they have taps on the Russian ambassador or these Russian agents, he says, and a citizen comes on the phone or a Trump campaign person or a surrogate or whomever, and they're talking to them as they might be other people, as far as I know, from other countries. I make no defense. I don't know. You still can't just repeat that stuff. You still can't just throw that stuff out in the public realm. So who had access to this? Who had access to this information? And when you put that together, oh, may I? Yes. May I connect that? When you put that together with the fact that the New York Times reported that the NSA rules for the distribution of information on the way out the door by the Obama administration was expanded to include 16 other federal departments and agencies. When you put out there the fact that the Obama staff, in fact, did spread the information around because they were afraid it would be destroyed or whatever the exact language was, this is very, very concerning. That alone is troublesome. That alone smells of police state tactics. Because time and again, they keep telling us no wrongdoing was found. Okay, so why are you doing this then? Why are you spreading the information around to make sure none of it's destroyed? I didn't invent the FISA court issue. And the media were perfectly happy with the FISA court thing hanging out there, confusing people, hanging out there. And then all of a sudden, no, they run from it. They run from it. This may well be true. It's damning. Let's start this from the top, Mr. Producer. Robbie Mook, Hillary Clinton's campaign. He's Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. He's not even working in the Obama administration. Just listen to what he says. Cut 5, go.
Facts are that Trump aides were caught talking to Russian agents, and those conversations were captured because the intelligence community regularly taps the phone lines of those Russian agents.
And we should stop right here. That in and of its, when I worked at the Justice Department, that information wasn't easily available. We didn't circulate that information. And now it's talked about like it's a common parlance. Because somebody leaked information to the New York Times of this sort and committed felonies. Now, if we were the Obama administration now, the reporters in the New York Times would be under investigation. Just saying, right? Isn't that what Obama did? Go ahead.
I think it's important to start there.
You're saying there was a wiretap? You say there was a wiretap.
That there was a wiretap of Russian agents, and that those Russian agents were communicating with Trump staff. That's why they were picked up. That's
How do you know that?
That's what the intelligence community has told us. That's what's been reported very widely. Those are the facts. So were there wiretaps of Russian agents? Absolutely. The question is, why in the world were Trump aides talking to Russian agents?
Let's just stop a second here. I know what he wants to argue, and I just want to say this to you. The fact that it was revealed that there were taps on quote-unquote Russian agents or the Russian ambassador, the fact that that was revealed publicly to the New York Times and perhaps other outlets is outrageous. It's outrageous. Now, what were in the intercepts? Well, we don't know. But this guy, immediately, he politicizes it. And this is how the media are working hand in glove with the Democrats. Now, we want to know, what were they discussing? What did they do? Well, apparently it wasn't enough because Mr. Clapper said the other day that there was no wrongdoing. Oh, we still need a special prosecutor. So what we have here is the commingling of these leaks and politics, working hand in glove. So when the New York Times reported these intercepts and that this information was out, the big headline wiretap, I believe it was January 20th, doing it off the top of my head, 2017, top of the fold and so forth and so on, somebody leaked or some people leaked to the New York Times that they had intercept information, and despite the fact there was nothing on there that was incriminating or damning or criminal or whatever it was, they put it out there. Now, I have a question for you, ladies and gentlemen. Why did the New York Times publish that? Apart from getting information from this source, the source which was clearly trying to smear the incoming president and so forth, given the timing of the report, why did the New York Times put something out there like that if, in fact, it was just merely an intercept that, you know, we're wiretapping agents or wiretapping the ambassador, and during the course of, you know, a routine tapping of foreign officials, which really isn't supposed to be public, that nothing was found. So what's the story about? What's the point of the story? Mr. Producer, what's the point of the story? It's to create an environment. It's to create suspicion. It's to create an impression. And that's why I said, once all this information comes out, we're going to go through this very, very carefully. I don't care how many hours it takes on air and so forth and so on. We're going to walk through this. There was apparently no reason for that story. Apparently there was no reason for that story. What were the reasons for the FISA stories? What were the reasons for the FISA leaks? If not to try and hurt a president-elect or try and hurt a candidate in an opposition party. What were the purposes of the FISA leaks? If they weren't directed specifically at Trump, if they weren't directed specifically at his campaign, if they involved, and I say if because who knows, if they involved Manafort or so forth and so on, why leak it? Manafort wasn't even the campaign chairman come October. To create an impression, right? Well, why would the media run with it? Some of it did, to create an impression. Why didn't the media then denounce it? Because they didn't want to denounce it. Right? This is worth a book. This is Tom Clancy's stuff, including the incredible conduct of the media in this country. The New York Times, CNN, among others. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Representative Jim Jordan, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, Mark. Good to be with you.
Well, you must have a lot of stab wounds all over your body, sir, because you are under attack along with the others. All of Washington, D.C., from the White House to your leadership to the Wall Street Journal editorial page, are pounding on you guys. You think you'll be able to stand for all this?
All you got to do is remember one thing. What did we tell the voters we're going to do? We told them we were going to repeal Obamacare, not keep the taxes, not keep the Medicaid expansion and actually extend it for more years. We told them we were going to repeal it. So let's repeal it. Let's do what we said. And let's focus on what needs to happen, which is bring back a marketplace so we can bring back affordable insurance for families across the country. I mean, that's what we told them. So I always say we make this job too complicated. Let's just do what we said.
Do what we said. I mean, when's the last time they did what they said? Now, let me ask you this, Congressman. I'm very troubled by this because One of the very nice members of your leadership spoke to me after my turning them down 3 times, and I'm not going to reveal who it is. Nice guy. I like the guy, but I told him, you waste your time. And they're going on and on. This is the most free market thing. It's this, that, and that. Since when are tax credits to people who don't pay enough taxes to get them? Since when is that free market? That's a massive new subsidy. Since when is leaving these massive regulations that are really the cost drivers?
Yes, you're right about that.
Yeah, since when does that? I mean, I look at all this. Medicaid is broke. Medicaid's draining a quarter out of every dollar, pretty much, of state budgets, and it's expanded for. You're going to see a race to expand Medicaid further.
Yes.
I just don't see this. Do you?
No, you're exactly right. We're extending Medicaid expansion, and I think the incentive is there for states to go out and sign up as many people as they can because they get the big federal match. They get the 100% from the federal government. So we're incentivizing the wrong thing there. Instead of like putting people on government health care, why don't we focus on getting rid of the regulations, putting in place those things that will create a market and bring down costs so working class families, middle class families can afford insurance, can afford the premiums, and buy the kind of policy that fits their family's needs versus this, sign them up for Medicaid approach. That's not what Republicans are about. And frankly, like I said before, it's not what we told the voters we were going to do when they elected us in 2010, 2014, and 2016.
And for some reason, the Republicans in Washington never look beyond 4 or 8 years. Are we going to always hold the House and the Senate? Are we always going to have the presidency? So you leave in place the foundations of Obamacare. Mm-hmm. What do you think the Democrats are going to do with that? They're going to run crazy.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's why we got a plan that makes sense. Our plan says, why don't we just do this? We should all be able to agree that what we voted on about a year ago, almost every single Republican voted for it. We put it on President Obama's desk. He vetoed it, but a clean repeal. I just introduced the bill about 3 hours ago. It says let's do the same thing we did before. Clean repeal. Let's cover that much. Then let's come back and let's focus on what Dr. Price can do at HHS. He can deal with some of these regulations and help with the cost of insurance. And then let's pass the replacement bill, which says expand health savings accounts, allow interstate shopping, make it easier to form association health plans, do all the give tax deductibility to people in the individual market, begin to equalize treatment for those who have to buy it as an individual versus those who get it from their employer-sponsored plan. That's the kind of thing that makes sense. That's the thing that will actually bring down costs. So let's do that, and we should be able to agree on that. But no, we got to do this plan.
Will you do me a favor, Congressman? Go to Conservative Review, the website. I'm editor-in-chief there, but it's magnificent work that I had nothing to do with. Daniel Horowitz.
I just read it. I read it earlier today. I read Daniel's columns. He sent them to us.
You saw the 20 reforms, right?
I haven't read that. I read the piece before, which says what's wrong with the approach that's being taken.
I want you to read the 20 reforms because these 20 reforms are so commonsensical. I mean, some tort control. I mean, it goes on and on and on about the thing. There's no cost control elements to this Republican proposal. That's one of the biggest problems.
Yeah, we have forgotten, Mark, and you know this. We have forgotten. I said this to folks back home in our district earlier this week. We have forgotten what a marketplace looks like in healthcare. We got so much government involvement, and this plan I don't think changes that. This plan I think continues this idea that we're going to have subsidies chasing unaffordable insurance. It's like chasing your tail, and it keeps spiraling upward, much like what we've seen in higher education, where the more government involvement, the higher the cost of tuition, and it keeps spiraling upward. That's what we've created in healthcare. We have to get away from that so we can eventually bring down cost and have some transparency and some actual shopping for value and transparency like every other area of our economy, except in healthcare.
So what do you think is going to happen? Do you know?
We're talking. Look, yesterday, Mr. Meadows and I met with the Vice President. We talked with Dr. Price. We talked with Mr. Mulvaney at OMB. He actually came to our...
Can I stop you right there a second?
Sure.
This is very interesting to me. Mr. Mulvaney used to be part of your group.
Yep.
That's number one. And then Mr. Pence, when he was a congressman, was one of the most conservative members of the House. So now you're having to negotiate with the Mr. Mulvaney and Mr. Pence, who really are taking up the other positions, right?
Yeah, and look, in fairness, there are some elements of this that I think make some sense, but I think on balance, it's not consistent with what we told the voters, and it keeps this kind of basic structure of Obamacare in place, just in a different form. I don't think that's, again, if I thought it would bring down costs, if I thought it would bring back affordable insurance and actually lower premiums for the hardworking families that I get to represent, particularly those in the individual market, then we'd be for it. I don't think it does that. I don't think it does it. And I don't know. I mean, how are you going to think about just the basics here? This plan gets rid of the mandate to buy insurance, which is good. We don't want to be telling people what they have to buy. Gets rid of the mandate, but keeps in place some of the taxes. If you take away the mandate, how are you really going to bring down costs if you don't get rid of all the regulations and promote health savings accounts and those things that can actually help?
That first point is the biggest Achilles heel. These regulations requiring insurance companies to offer this, to offer that, to offer this, and nobody's paying for it.
Yep.
You know what it is? Everybody's paying for everything, and everybody's paying for nothing. That's what happens when you have big government control. Well, I just wanted to make one other point to you. I hope, despite all the propaganda about how this election was won and why it was won on 3 issues: the Supreme Court, immigration, and repeal Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling Republicans, you don't get this right in 2 years, it's not going to be because you passed something that's bad. It's because the president and others are saying this is going to be the greatest thing. You're going to afford it. Okay, great. That's a lot of big-time promises.
Yeah.
And this doesn't do that.
Yeah, you're right. If premiums don't come down, that's the real test. So you look, I think it'd be a problem if we don't pass something. I mean, we need to pass something, but we need to pass the right thing. And passing the right thing means something that's going to bring back affordable insurance. So that, to me, should be the test. So I'd like to get it done sooner rather than later, but more important than that is getting it done right. So let's have the debate. Let's let the legislative process work the way that it's supposed to work in this great country. Let's have the debate. Let's be able to offer amendments. I hope we're going to be able to offer amendments on the floor to try to make this thing consistent with what I think will bring down costs.
Well, Congressman, I have to go, but don't hold your breath. Thanks. Keep fighting. There's millions and millions of people who are behind you. Appreciate you. We'll be right back.
Every one of you. When Mark Levin was a kid, his teachers didn't like his snide sense of humor. Today, they still don't like it. Call Mark Levin now at 877-381-3811.
You want to have some fun? You want to have some fun each and every night watching some solid conservative programming on TV? You can watch it on Samsung or TV through Roku. You can watch it on your PC. You can watch it on your laptop, your iPad, your iPhone, your Android device, on and on and on. It's a lot of fun. You can take it with you, take it to work. If you carpool and sit in the back, take public transportation, you can watch it. Sitting at a restaurant, you're on vacation, you can watch it. Going to your friend's or family's house, you can watch it. It's called Levin TV, part of the CRTV network. It's a brand new enterprise. Started about a year ago under Levin TV. And we're expanding it to hosts who work hard, who want to provide you with a wonderful, wonderful program. And we spend a lot of time and resources on getting our production as cutting edge as possible. It's very professional. Now, I want to encourage you to participate in this. This is a truly major conservative event. Participating in this for a full week for free. And see if you like it. We believe you're going to love it. That's why we're going to do it this way. So you can join us. My show comes on over 200 times a year at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then after it runs, it's available anytime, day or night. And there's over 200 of them there right now. You can check them out. You can check out the great Michelle Malkin. She's absolutely magnificent. You can check out the great Steven Crowder. Absolutely magnificent. As we add more. Our buddy Steve Dace is there now, too. Steve is a great young broadcaster, and there will be more. So I hope you'll check us out. It's absolutely free for the first 7 days, a free 7-day trial to CRTV. It's only for a limited time, so you're going to want to check it out. And then you decide, okay, you know what, I want to sign up. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If you're in law enforcement, or you're a veteran, you're in the military or a firefighter, you get $30 off. So rather than $99 a year, and when I say $99 a year, that's for 12 months. It's not like cable or satellite, where you're lucky if you pay $99 a month and they have 1,000 channels you don't watch. This, believe me, is going to be appointment TV for you. And you're going to have several shows to watch. And you'll get in on the bottom level. So you'll be charged $69 for the entire year. That's the best we can do. Now, for everybody else, you tell them I said that you get $10 off. So you'll get $89 for the entire year. Now, divide that by 12, and that's a pretty good deal. So I hope you'll join us. Check us out. Look, let's start over. 7-day free trial. Check us out. Here's where you go. 844-LEVIN-TV. 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 Start your 7-day free trial. Or go to CRTV.com. CRTV.com. You don't know what you're missing if you haven't checked it out. Do me a favor. Just check it out tonight. Just take a look at it. See if you like it. I'd be curious to know what you think. We want your feedback. 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV. And I'm telling you, you're going to have a lot of fun. You, your entire family. All right, let's take some more calls here. Here we go. Here we go. Let us go to Adam, Bozeman, Montana, the great KBOZ. Go.
Hey, Mark. Thanks. It's nice to talk to you. I got your book, Proverbs for Young People, which I love. I read it with my daughter.
That's my father's book, and it is a wonderful book. Thank you.
Yes, I know. I'm telling you, people are not going to forget this. If he doesn't get this thing right...
Who is he?
Trump. I know Trump can't do it all by himself, but he certainly, with all his, bluster, can make these people get rid of Obamacare completely. Not that, that he wants to now, I guess. He's changing his tune. But if he doesn't get this right, he will be a one-term president. That is for sure.
Now, were you a Trump supporter early on?
No, I was a Cruz guy, but I held my nose like you, and I couldn't let Hillary be president.
Mm-hmm. All right, my friend. Let us go to David, Jersey City, New Jersey, the great WABC. Go.
Hi, Mark. How are you tonight?
All right. How are you?
Well, thank you. Hey, I just wanted to chime in. I had a chance to listen to Tom Price at his news conference yesterday, where Spicer usually does.
Yeah, so did I. Yep.
So I guess what I'm having a disconnect on here, my understanding from listening to that is that the bill that's currently put forth is supposed to only address things that they can do through the budget reconciliation process. And I hear a lot of really good ideas.
Let me slow you down. There's a lot they can do in the budget reconciliation process that they're not doing. For instance, they can eliminate the expansion of Medicaid under the budget reconciliation process. Instead, they're extending it under the budget reconciliation process till 2020. You aware of that?
I am.
They can eliminate, these are the pillars of the Obamacare plan that are breaking the backs of the taxpayer and insurance companies. I'll give you some more examples. For example, I have a question. Why should a 26-year-old adult or 25-year-old adult be on their parents' health insurance plan? Why is that mandated? Were you on your parents' health insurance plan when you were 25, sir?
I was not.
Well, neither was I. And I can go into a whole bunch of other. Why do we have pre-existing condition coverage this way? We can cover pre-existing conditions as a society, but why do we pretend that it's insurance? It's not insurance. There's so many other things that can, in fact, be done in the budget reconciliation process. And as a matter of fact, the Congressional Budget Office has ruled that it's all covered by the budget reconciliation process. And I brought that up to the gentleman today who called me, one of the leadership people, and he said, well, that's fine. The problem is the parliamentarian. I said, well, that's fine, but you have the courts behind you. Because these regulations are the real drivers, these mandates and so forth, that are causing the excessive spending. So while it's true, under certain circumstances, only so much can get done through the budget reconciliation process, they're using this as a fig leaf. A lot can be undone that they do not wish to undo under the budget reconciliation process.
Right, and I agree with, and I agree they should do more if that's the case. And I think particularly as it relates to the Medicaid.
Do you know what happened with the Medicaid thing? I was told by the gentleman who called me.
Oh, I didn't hear. I'm sorry.
The president told the Republican leadership in the House, I need the governors with me. They went to the governors. Just listen to me. I'm explaining a fact to you. A number of the governors are from states, Republican states, where the governors expanded Medicaid. They grabbed as much money as they could get to balance their budgets and so forth. Of course, in the out years, it's so short-sighted, they're going to be left holding the kumquat. It just depends. Right. So you're talking too much. I'm giving you information. It's not an opinion. I'm giving you information that I was told this afternoon. In order to get some of these governors who expanded Medicaid under Obamacare on board, they had to keep Medicaid in place to 2020. Has nothing to do with the budget reconciliation process. They have to keep cutting deals with moderate and liberal Republicans. And I say start to cut deals with conservatives, because many of these moderate and liberal Republicans, particularly in the House and the Senate, they rode in on the coattails of conservatives. And yet they seem to be the tail wagging the dog. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you obviously had a lot of Republican governors like Scott Walker that didn't take the Medicaid expansion.
We had more that took it than didn't.
Right, and they took it because they saw it as free money, because normally Medicaid
Correct.
is supposed to be a shared responsibility, but
Correct.
the federal government basically bribed them. And you're right. I mean, that is the hardest part, I think, to undo. Because
let me ask you a bigger question. They're not going to get the spending on this under control because they're going to add a new entitlement, sir. Now, they're going to add it through the budget reconciliation process, and that is these tax credits. It's like the earned income tax credit, which has become a disaster, quite frankly, and that is this. People get a tax credit for taxes they haven't even paid. And so you and I subsidize it. And to some extent, this tax credit goes all the way up to families earning up to $290,000. Are you aware of that?
No, I haven't had a chance to read the bill.
Well, how come Tom Price didn't bring that up?
You know, I don't know, and I'm sure you saw it as well. His argument is that people that get their insurance through their employer get tax benefits that way, and so they're trying to offer tax benefits to people who don't currently get tax
I know, but if you do that and you keep Medicaid and all, you have a bleeding going on. That's not good enough. It's like people who say, yes, everybody should have to pay and you shouldn't get free health care, so you ought to have a mandate or you ought to have a 30% penalty, because they're thinking inside the progressive box that Obama and the others have created. No, the answer is those young people, they don't participate. They should be able to get a cheap plan. 10 years ago, you could go on your college campus and buy a health care plan for $200 or $300 or $400 per semester to cover the basics. Or people could get a catastrophic plan. They're prepared to pay out of pocket for colds and coughs and strep and all the rest of it. They're not allowed to do this anymore.
I agree, and rightly or wrongly, I think Price and the president think they're going in that direction.
Well, they're not.
Okay, I'm just saying, having listened.
I don't know how creating this, what's going to become addictive, this so-called tax credit, I don't know how that's going to stop anything. The states are already addicted to expanded Medicaid. What's going to happen in 2020? They're going to be more addicted. You think that's going to suddenly turn around? I've lived too long and seen too much. This is a perfect example. We have Obamacare, and the Republicans are debating like a bunch of liberals. There's no free market aspect to this. They're going to throw that term around over and over and over again. This is a centralized, big government system. They're tinkering on the edges, and even worse, they're opening up other avenues where money's going to pour out of the federal government. Now, here's my question to you. The president wants a $1 trillion infrastructure program. Ivanka Trump wants a family leave, taxpayer paid for, the president brought it up in his speech, new entitlement program. Social Security's going broke, according to the Social Security trustees and actuaries. Same with Medicare. Student loans are over $1 trillion, and now most of us are on the ticket for that because it was essentially nationalized. And now this. We have a Republican government. Do you want the biggest spending government in the history of man? Don't you think it's time we stop falling for these procedural arguments and tell them to get off their ass and actually do something?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And since they're supposed to be doing tax reform that's coming up behind this, it would seem to me that's the time to address the taxable issues as it relates to Medicare coverage or what you pay in your taxes. Maybe if you get your health insurance.
They're not going to address Medicare through the tax proposal.
Ability that one gets. Maybe we shouldn't get that in terms of when you get your insurance through.
Okay, maybe you'll agree with me that they need to do a hell of a lot better. All right, my friend, I appreciate your call. Very good. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let's phase it out, as much as I hate to do it. You know, a buddy of mine wrote me, Doug Ross, and he says, you know what I was just thinking? I said, what? Do you realize you have turned the whole narrative around with the media and Trump and Russia? I said, what are you talking about? The media is now saying there were no extraordinary investigations into Trump world. There were no extraordinary investigations, no wiretaps per se, no FISA court per se, can't be proven. Investigating the Trump campaign or Trump enterprises or the Trump world, essentially. I said, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Now, I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what have you been thinking the last several months as a result of the reporting? You've been thinking all those things, right? It is amazing. I said, we're going to see what comes out in the investigations, and I'm going to put it all together. The major media outlets that were involved, the New York Times, Washington Post, McClatchy, what else? The Guardian, CNN. And I'm also going to look at those news outlets who did secondary reporting or who were perfectly happy not to dig in to find out actually what was going on. This is going to be remarkable, I think. Do you believe that we were all created with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Now, these truths are so basic, so obvious, that the guys who wrote our Declaration and our Constitution said that they're self-evident. If these are your beliefs like mine, then you should know how relevant Hillsdale College is to your life. You don't have to be college age or even know anyone college age. You just need to have a strong belief in the pursuit of truth and the defense of liberty. Most modern Americans don't, and that's very sad. Hillsdale College teaches us about how critical liberty is in every aspect of our lives and how our way of life depends on American citizens, starting with you, becoming advocates for basic truths. Hillsdale offers the free online courses you hear me talk about, free regional lectures across the country, free publications like their monthly Speech Digest and Primus. What a magnificent institution. Make it a point to regularly check in with Levin for Hillsdale.com, that's Levin for Hillsdale.com, to see how Hillsdale can help turn you into a more satisfied and more courageous fighter for truth and liberty. Levin for Hillsdale.com, that's Levin for Hillsdale.com, Levin for Hillsdale.com. Go ahead and check them out. It's a magnificent site for a magnificent school. You know what Hillsdale reminds me of? When I read about Socrates, truthfully, and Plato, and Aristotle, Plato being Socrates' student, Aristotle being Plato's student, and so forth. That's what it reminds me of, the high point of intellectualism, of philosophy, of curiosity. That's what it reminds me of. In my mind's eye, that's what I see. And that's pretty damn special. Hillsdale College. Levin for Hillsdale.com. Check it out. I've got 1 minute, which means the next person has 40 seconds. Brian, I only have 40 seconds. I'm very, very sorry. You go right ahead.
Mark, just wanted to call and say thanks. All the times I'll talk to you, I don't believe I've thanked you, but I want to thank you for writing Rescuing Spring, because we had to put our rescue down last night. Sudden onset wasn't nothing. It came out of nowhere, and the book's really good. It's very cathartic, and one of those things we love.
Oh, Brian, I'm really, really sorry, and there's nothing I can say that won't sound Pollyannish, but you know what, my brother? Just know we're all with you. We know what you're going through. Over time, you won't get over it, but the pain will settle down a little bit, and I wish you all the best, you and your family. I'm sorry. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Be safe. God bless you.